for everybody.
Senator Sakaja, I believe you do agree that Nairobi is in deep debt and there's wasteful use of funds. What are the factors behind this? How will you fix it?
Again, I must say, Nairobi is in a dire situation that needs proper planning and proper political management. A lot of these issues are relational. If you look at the 76 billion debt, including even the 4.4 that is owed now, to KCB, and many of these other instruments we've gotten into, a lot of them can be sorted out based on how we relate with the national government. That Nairobi is not a branch of the national government or an appendage, or as my brother says, the military interventions are going on. Then Nairobi can negotiate, because there are a lot of areas which we can do debt swaps. That the county of Nairobi owes the national government, and the national government owes Nairobi City County. We must balance our books, and we're going to do that. And we have a team that is, properly suited, to be able to do that. I am very, very confident about my deputy, Njoroge Mushiri, who has a stellar career as well in banking. Actually, a proper corporate career, not 2 year stints here and there. A proper career, 20 years in ABSA.
So
NIC.
give us the particulars, though,
Yes.
on the issue of the debt that we are in. How will we get out once you are government?
And that's what I'm saying. We must do a couple of things. One, you must refinance your debt. You must move what is domestic into concessional. That you cannot be borrowing from commercial banks. Have them as concessional. Chapter 12 of the Constitution of Kenya, talking about public finance, says how the national government guarantees county governments of debt. In fact, on top of that, we must get creative. For us to sort out the real issues of this city, we need around 200 billion shillings upfront through an infrastructure bond. I've gone across this world and spoken to Kenyans in the diaspora whose remittances are our biggest foreign income earner, who are ready to put in money in certain interventions. When we talk about transit, we need a mass transit system in this county. How are we going to do it? Recently, I was in Imperial College in London, and I met a man, a nice gentleman, who sorted out transit in London. He sorted out transit in Beijing, mobility. What's his name? Professor Washington Ochieng. The other day I was in Riyadh. I met a group of guys who did the Dubai Metro and are doing the Riyadh Metro. George Opondo. There are Kenyans out there who are willing. So we must get creative. There's a PPP department that has been set up in the National Treasury. There's external borrowing. But we must refinance this city. Look at Joburg. Joburg is almost, it's more or less a listed city where people can actually invest in it. If you do not do that, you become a cashier. That you're receiving money, you only pay salaries, you will not develop Nairobi unless you get creative in how we actually, structure our financing model for the city. So we're going to restructure the debt, move to concessional loans, re-amortize some of those payments to longer term, and have an infrastructure bond for Nairobi City. Many Kenyans out there are going to put in money on our transit, on our water, and our basic infrastructure.
Bwana Polycarp, utakabili vipi matumizi ya mabaya ya rasilimali katika kaunti ya Nairobi, ufujaji wa fedha na madeni ambayo sasa hivi yanaangamiza kaunti ya Nairobi?
Jambo la kwanza, Nairobi City County gets its highest revenue from land rates, parking bays, land rates, parking fees, outdoor advertising, building permits. Those would be some of the within the top 5 revenue things. And what we are going to do is to make sure that we digitalize the collection of all that revenue so that the leakage, we seal the leakage. Technology is one of the best things to overcome loss of revenue. And we are going to use technology in the public revenue management system. Then secondly, we will deploy that money. Our own source revenue, I can promise, we and Professor Kaloki have done a study, and we've even checked the reports of the Commission for Revenue Allocation. With 6 revenue lines, we can generate 80 billion own source revenue in Nairobi. And with that money, we will build 1,000. We will join the government in building more schools, in making sure there's medicine in our dispensaries, in making sure that there's incinerators to burn garbage, that we start a leasing program for vehicles and equipment for the staff, and also to make sure we pay our staff the right salaries so that they are really motivated. We are very concerned about the welfare of Nairobi City County workers and all the workers of all affiliate bodies of Nairobi City County. Only motivated workers can deliver essential services, and that's what Nairobians want.
And that brings me to the next issue, and that is the competence of the Nairobi City County staff, and you will both have an opportunity to respond to this. How will you address the competence or lack thereof overemployment, cases of ghost workers, and the issue of productivity to make those staff workers, the workers of Nairobi City County, that they will deliver the services for the Nairobians. I'll start with you.
Every employee of Nairobi City County, from the 10th of August, we shall have a performance agreement with them. We will bring back to life performance contracting. And that performance agreement means, what do they do every day? The few things they do every day to deliver the output Nairobians expect. And that output will be captured in a scorecard. So each one of us will have a scorecard and a performance agreement. The performance agreement is the input. The scorecard is the measure. And who will measure is the neighborhood associations. We're going to run Nairobi with the neighborhood associations as per the Neighborhoods Act. There is an act that demands the city is run in a see-through way. Let me not call it transparent. That, and I want to use the analogy of an egg. The executive of Nairobi City County will be the yolk. Surrounding it will be the county assembly as the egg white. The egg shell will be the residents of Nairobi. Kwa sababu, we will not pay an invoice for a road or a broken sewer before the neighborhood association, say of Kayole, sends us a photo. So there's crowdsourcing. We are going to use technology and the cloud and a data center that can really be able to serve the city of Nairobi. And we shall decentralize services from City Hall. City Hall will be the headquarters of the corporate services. There is no use for a waiter, like I found a waiter, a restaurant, somebody working somewhere in Umoja, telling me they have to come all the way to CBD ati anakuja kutafuta food handler certificate. No. That food handler certificate, they should be able to get it in Umoja.
Sakaja, I think you were tickled there again. Was a point to mention the cloud issue, but how will you address the staffing for Nairobi County?
Unajua mavijana wa Nairobi wakisikia vile amesema hiyo story ya mayai, atasema anatubeba kimayai. Many of those ideas, really, Pauline, this is not equity, eh? This is not corporate. You must take the bull by the horns and give practical solutions to our city. And let me give you an example. You're talking about, one of the highest revenue streams, being rates. Have you talked to us about the reclassification of those rates? Why is it that people in Githogoro are paying the same rate as people in Runda, which is just, a doorstep away, yet they have Mabati structures and these ones have 5-star houses? Let's be practical, because that is what Nairobians want to be able to hear. Now, the sectional properties bill that was passed in Parliament recently prevents an opportunity. I've heard him saying he's done a study with Professor Kaloki. I know Professor Kaloki is a professor. And maybe that's why we've not been seeing you guys campaigning, because you're doing studies. But look at what KPMG has spoken about Nairobi. Look at what PwC have said, and the CRA. It is not just 6 revenue streams that are going to increase how much we collect. Just the sectional properties realignment and the revaluation that starts in January 2023 is going to take us up another 50 to 53 billion shillings. Every other revenue stream then must be geared towards making Nairobians more productive. The NMS that you praise has been going around this city with GSU, harassing our traders and our hawkers, throwing them into those pickups, tetanus field pickups and roadworthy. By the way, on the 9th, if you're listening and you're a scrap metal dealer, come to City Hall. Revenue has gone down to 7 billion. Why is that? Because you're not explaining to the people of Nairobi the services you're offering with the money you collect from them. We will have a people-centered leadership. Cloud is a tool.
Na muda umekwisha.
Your focus must be on the people you're serving. You can't be.
Muda umekwisha bwana seneta, lakini umekuwa seneta wa kaunti ya Nairobi. Umewajibika vipi katika kuona kwamba pesa za kaunti ya Nairobi zinatumika namna inavyostahili? Hakuna wizi, hakuna watu wasiofanya kazi ambao wanalipwa. Umekuwa seneta, wewe ndiye macho ya kaunti ya Nairobi.
Umewajibika vipi? Hapa mlifanya utafiti.
Umewajibika vipi seneta katika kuhakikisha kwamba pesa za kaunti ya Nairobi zimetumika vyema?
My timer is counting while you're talking. Kama mlifanya utafiti, ungeona zile ripoti ambazo nimewasilisha, zile miswada na hoja ambazo nimezileta kwa bunge. Hapo kati ya hizo miswada na hoja, kuna ile ambayo inaitwa prompt payment bill, ambayo pia wale wengine walijaribu kuweka katika mswada wa BBI walikuwa wanaleta. Ilikuwa nimeshapitisha kwa bunge. Ukiangalia yale unajua zile ripoti ambazo nimewasilisha kwa bunge, zinazungumza itakuwa ni njia gani tutatumia, mbinu gani, form itakuwa vipi. Kwa kisha ule jamaa, there's a guy who works just across over here in Cultivar. He's called Fred. He's one of the procurement people. Akona wines and spirits Buruburu. Anasema ya kwamba wakati akiwa job anasikia hawa watu wa NMS na GSU wamekuja In their WhatsApp group, they tell each other that hawa watu wamekam. Kuna wimbo wanasemanga walikam na kinini, vijana wa Nairobi wanajua. Wamekam na Subaru. Na wakikuja hapo, they tell each other in the WhatsApp group, they close all the shops. That's why this military you're praising has not collected 7 billion this year. Let's take power back to the people. And he tried to define this election. It's not about liars and who don't lie. It's about a state project and a people's governor.
Speaking
That's
about
the choice
people's governor, power to the people, let's give some power to the people who weighed in on this debate. We had asked some questions from Nairobians, and I believe we're ready to sample them right now.
My name is Masi Masila Achola, an executive program leader with the Maxwell Leadership Team, and also serving in the Kenya Daima Steering Committee. My question to the Nairobi gubernatorial candidates is, if elected to office, could you share with the residents of Nairobi what can we expect from you in your first 100 days in office?
In the first 100 days, I pledge with my deputy to have a very fit for purpose organization to deliver essential services that Nairobians have been deprived of in the past, and especially Nairobians in the informal settlements and in low-income areas. And therefore, there will be Executive Order number 1 that establishes a good government, a coherent government, and a government where the deputy governor has clear responsibilities, a government where the governor himself has clear responsibilities, and where we work as partners, him playing to his strengths and me playing to my strengths, but a proper cabinet. Also, we promise you a proper cabinet that is fit for purpose, and the purpose is essential service delivery. The people watching us at home, actually, they just want services. They want water in their taps. They want garbage collected. They want storm drains covered. They want pedestrian walks repaired. They want markets made. They don't want to continue selling on the roadsides. They want their bills on time, and they want to be treated with honor, and they want to be treated like citizens of Kenya, and they want to be enabled to do their businesses. So the first 100 days is about reconstructing the organization called Nairobi City County, because it does not exist, and we have a lot of demotivated employees. Make sure that we convince them, they start to see their salaries are paid, they are well taken care of, career development is sorted. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the lady from Maxwell for that question. Maxwell Leadership Institute on Valley Road is an extremely important, pillar in mentoring many of our young people. I've actually taught many programs of leadership there, and I've been a participant in that. I think when she asked 100 days, maybe what she wanted to hear from me, Polycarp, was just to say, I will not quit first, as the beginning.
Thanks for answering for me. Go ahead.
Exactly. Please keep reminding people, because people are afraid to watch a komata. Okay. But secondly, I want to say this. In the first 100 days, I've said that you will not sort out Nairobi using quick fixes. The issues of this city don't need 100, and I'm not seeking 100-day term. It's not quick fixes or bandage solutions that will sort it out. We have a 10-year vision and a 5-year vision with milestones. But in the first 100 days, what we're going to do, number 1, is to implement the Urban Areas and Cities Act together with Section 14 of the County Government Act to create the 5 boroughs that I'm talking about in Nairobi. That if the person in charge of garbage in Kayole does not need to think about Westlands, the person in charge of a road in Langata should have nothing to do with Roysambu or Marurui. Because that lack of accountability, when you ask them, okay, mbona hapa kuna takataka, pole boss kulikuwa na sijui crisis in Mukuru. So we'll set up the governance structure that will deliver to Nairobians. That is the first task, and that includes the county assembly. The second thing that we're going to do is to implement the standing orders that we've actually been working on, even as I've been in the Senate, proper standing orders for the inspectorate. We cannot have people criminalizing business, chasing our hawkers, throwing sticks at them. They must have proper, like any discipline force, standing orders. And finally, we'll implement the one business permit. You can't have businesses with 10 licenses. No. Today there is fire, tomorrow there is water. It will be one license. Right. And I will pay every other entity that needs to be paid from that one license that you pay in Nairobi.
Bwana Polycarp, mmekuwa mkizungumza kuhusu tatizo la maji taka katika kaunti ya Nairobi. Awali ulitaja kuhusu cartels. Je, unaamini kwamba ubinafsishaji wa huduma hizi katika kaunti ya Nairobi utasaidia katika kusuluhisha baadhi ya matatizo ambayo yamekuwepo kuhusu usimamizi wa huduma hizi?
Huduma za maji zimekuwa ni tatizo kubwa. Juzi nimetembea kule Ruai na muliona picha. Sikujua kuna mahali Nairobi watu ubeba maji bado na punda. Pia, so you learn every day. Now, if you go to Ruai, the problem is a problem of way leaves, which the senator perhaps was even ignored in Senate. There is a way leave issue between Kiambu and Nairobi. Because today we are consuming 500,000 cubic meters of water every day in Nairobi. But that's really the level of production of water from our water sources, Dakaine, Roiro Dam. But the Roiro Dam and the Northern Collector Tunnel, we need to connect it. Na hiyo shida ya wave ni shida ya kisiasa, lazima tutatue. Na hiyo kitatuliwa, there'll be an extra almost close to 100,000 cubic, so we'll go to 600,000 immediately. And people will, watu wataanza kusikia relief. But in 5 years, we have to build new water sources and work with the national government to build new water sources. But you've got the government that builds new water sources has to be a government that does not believe dams are for eating and stealing. Because dams have to be done in places like the Nyandarua ecosystem, Maragua Dam in Murang'a, and that's why Nairobi has to be secured by being assisted by the neighboring countries to the metropole that is Nairobi City County.
Senator Sakaja, the taps in many homes and other businesses are running dry, but their water bowsers full to the brim and coming at a premium. How will you sort this?
First, again, it's really nice that we're at a university because I need to school my friend about water. There are many things you've said that are completely false. Number one, the quantity that we consume is not that 525,000 that you're speaking about. Nairobi has 4 water sources. The first water source is Kikuyu Springs, just after Kikuyu campus. That was set up in 1907. After that, we developed Ruiru Dam in 1936. It provides 4%. Kikuyu Springs provides only 1%, which is 4,000 cubic meters of water. The third one is Sasumwa in Njambini. Sasumwa produces 11% of our water requirement in Nairobi, comes through Kabete treatment plant, then comes down this way. And the fourth one, the biggest of course, is Ndakaine, which gives us 84% of our water. Now Ndakaine was last developed in 1997. There were 3 phases. After 1997, there's been no additional source. So every single day, the people of Nairobi require 850 million liters of water, but get 525.6 million liters per day. You need to bridge that gap. In fact, you'll be shocked, Polycarp. 70% of the people you're talking about, the ones you didn't know carry water in Mutungi, 70% of them, of Nairobians, have never had a shower from the top. They bathe bottom up, like with the bucket. Bottom up is how many of us shower in this city. We want to give our people dignity. There is no dignity when women are scrambling outside these, boreholes that have been created and the water sources every day for water. The issue of distribution then is the next thing that must be. I asked about this time thing because I've just spoken about the quantity. So when we finish Northern Collector, December 2023, under our administration, I don't like saying our administration, we'll move into Northern Collector 2. One will sort out 85% of the water need, and then 65%, and then Northern Collector 2 will give us 85%. Now the second most important issue, if you allow me
on
quickly,
your time, let's give him an opportunity. Let's give him an opportunity. Just keep time.
The challenge of water. The debate in Nairobi is not about what needs to be done and how. There is consensus that we are short of sources of water. It is who will do it, because you need to be trustworthy and you need to be capable to get it done. That issue of who is the most important issue in this election. And on the issue of water, for sure, the supply and demand, there's too little supply for very high demand. And the numbers are what it is. The metropolitan area, because Nairobi even supplies Machakos, the EPZ area, with water, the biggest challenge is new sources of water for the city county of Nairobi. And that is a task between ourselves and the national government. And thank God we have Martha Karua, the original champion of water of water, as Minister of Water during Kibaki's time. And she understands the task, and we are ready to work with her in Nairobi.
For Nairobi, it will be a responsibility. On to housing, a majority of Nairobians live in informal settlement. I just want to cover as much as we can. And a majority of the populace here live in informal settlements. And how are we going to change this housing demand and give quality housing and other services for Nairobians? I'll start with you.
Thank you. I'll just take the same time to finish on water. I've heard him mentioning Martha. Earlier he mentioned Raila. These are people we all, we know and we've worked with many years. Don't run away and hide behind them when you don't have the point. Just say the point as it is. Because Nairobians are electing you to be governor of Nairobi, not Martha Karua, not Raila Odinga. They're electing you. If they elect you, if they make that decision, which I know they will not make, you must sort out the distribution issue of water, because water goes hand in hand with housing. So I've spoken about the quantity. And it's not about waiting for an angel from national government to do it. Already we're at 90% with the Northern Collector 1. The piping has been, or rather the tunneling has been done. The piping is at 34%. This side from Apro Isambu, coming from Kiambu Institute of Technology to USIU, moving down, is already going on. We have so many areas that do not have piping. I've never had piping in Nairobi. There are people who actually build houses across what were the physical levers. They shut it down, they collect water, and then you see these bowsers moving around the city, labeled clean water or NMS. That will come to an end using SCADA technology. Where as governor, I'll be able to see on my phone, Mali wamekata maji. Now, urban housing is a huge challenge in this city. And it's also something that the built environment has made people lack dignity in this city. The county government is not in the business of building houses. We shall facilitate the private sector through proper land tenure and giving them proper land of government to actually partner with them to build these houses. We can actually do it through the silo model, where you build and people move and come in there. Urban renewal is being resisted in Eastlands because of lack of trust of that institution or body that is praising here today. I wish you go there tomorrow and tell them what you said about NMS.
Bwana Polycarp, maji ni mojawapo ya shida ambazo zinakumba wale ambao wanaishi katika mitaa ya mabanda katika kaunti ya Nairobi. Hasa ni mpango upi ambao uko nao wa kuinua na kuimarisha hadhi ya watu ambao wanaishi katika mitaa ya mabanda katika kaunti ya Nairobi na changamoto ambazo wanakumbana nazo?
So first of all, the county of Nairobi in its own books owns close to 532 hectares of land. On it sits 12,000 single dwelling units. Nairobi has to strategically densify. But that process requires proper public participation. You can already hear my competitor is whetting his appetite to steal your homes. You people in Makadara and Jericho, umesikia, he has pronounced himself that this will be private sector led. I have told you, this thing called urban renewal, which is what they want Nairobi to take, we have to be very careful. It needs proper conversations around it, and we must build housing that is truly affordable housing, decent housing, and before we build, we must ask the people who sit in those estates, mnataka nini? How will this work? And how will you be compensated? Before that is done, we are rushing. And you've seen a big rush towards that work, and we are saying, put it on hold. The Constitution demands proper public participation, proper understanding, and I want to believe that conversation has already not been held. So the housing question in the informal settlements is to continue the work that has started. Roads, water, sewer, boreholes. These informal settlements require a lot of investment, and that investment requires allocation of improving our revenue and also making sure Senate allocates us the money we require to attend to high density areas.
Okay. A rebuttal in terms of what he said on your housing urban development plan there. An opportunity.
There are people waiting in the wings to come and steal your houses, and you've had the private sector.
He has the opportunity. You're in his time. You have an opportunity.
I don't know who represents the private sector here on this stage, if you look clearly. But what I'll say is this. While you are away, when you ran away from Nairobians, Polycarp, I represented the people of Majengo in Kamkunji in court to fight what you're talking about. You are somewhere in your Bentley, living the life, never spoken about an issue of Nairobians. But now you're saying you want to steal. That they were moved from slums in Majengo their slums were put down and put in 11,000 bob houses while they're paying 5,000 shillings, 4,000 shillings. Today, the amount of money owed that they need to pay is 60 million shillings. That's what someone wants to steal the houses. When I talk about urban renewal, the entity you're praising is rushing. Just this week, there have been more than 3-4 advertisements on the newspaper for them to engage contractors on urban renewal, and they have 28 days to go. They must stop that, and I'm putting them on notice. In fact, it's against the law. An entity whose time has ended cannot engage in 10, 15-year contracts today. He doesn't have the guts to talk against NMS, and he will not. But they must not do that, because the people that you're talking about, I have represented for
NMS,
5 years.
NMS is not an enemy of Nairobi.
I have not ran away from them, and they are saying they believe urban renewal must be done. They don't trust those people who are doing it. And you say it's an issue of trust? It's not about who's going to do it. The first thing, basic thing that they want is to know that that person will be there to do it for 5 years and will not run away. First deliver on that.
Unfortunately, it's time out for us in terms of this debate. There's a lot to cover. I believe both of you gentlemen have spoken and have alluded to the fact that you have the manifestos will be open to the public, Nairobians to be specific, to peruse and digest. And that is where we will end it at this opportunity. I believe even the time for closing remarks are not there. If we probably managed the time a bit better in the beginning, it would have ended up even better in terms of coverage of the discussion.
Asanteni sana kwa kuja.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us.
Naam, wasemapo wahenga kilicho na mwanzo lazima kiwe na mwisho. Hii sasa ndio tamati ya mjadala baina ya wanaomezea mate kiti cha ugavana katika kaunti ya Nairobi.
Indeed, our appreciation to the candidates, Polycarp Igathe and Johnson Sakaja, and to you, the audience that turned up here and out there watching on television and from around the world, of course, online. Thank you all. My name is Mark Masai from NTV.
Nami naitwa Zubeida Kome na kutakia usiku mwema. Zubeida Kome kutoka KTN News.
And the teams are invited to join.
Well, there you have it, the first ever Nairobi gubernatorial debate hosted by the Presidential Debate Secretariat has, according to many of my analysts here, lived up to its billing and set the stage for the other two debates. One that will happen next week, Tuesday, and the other the week after for the deputy president's race and the president's race as well. I dare say if it's a debate you tuned in for this evening, I'm pretty sure it's one you got. The question is, however, a debate on what? Was it a debate on the issues that plague Nairobians today, that live within this great county, or was it a debate on rebuttals and counter-rebuttals between Johnson Sakaja and, of course, Polycarp Igathe as well? That's some of the feedback I'll be looking from my panelists who've been patiently and keenly following this particular debate. But first, let me read your feedback. This is what Nairobians and Kenyans are saying this evening. Nathaniel Kevin on Twitter says, an insightful debate, character traits coming out strongly, a peek into the capabilities of each participant, and excavation of their track records as well. I perceive admirable leadership qualities. Let us vote wisely. Limuki Flora says, can these two candidates really articulate the real issues affecting the city, apart from throwing barbs at each other on quitting and degrees and stuff like that? And Paul Olind says, debates, even chaotic ones, offer a great insight to a politician's character than any political rally. I'll also be reading some of your SMS messages, and we are getting them, but my panel are here with me, and I don't know where to begin. Professor Odote, I think let me start with you and get your immediate reaction to that debate. What do you take out of it? What do you now know about these two men that you did not know before the start?
There were two debates.
At the same time?
Yes, there were two debates. So the first debate was a debate about madness. A debate where people were abusing each other, were shouting at each other, and were focusing on themselves and on the other side. I hated that debate because it didn't help me. I liked the second part of the debate because in the second part of the debate, I started hearing issues. Unfortunately, there were too few issues. The issue that I had that for me made me happy, I like the ideas from Governor Sakaja about governance. The ideas about Barrows, I think, was an excellent idea. I like his grasp of Nairobi. He knows Nairobi and he knows the facts. That for me was extremely nice.
Professor, don't I have the unfortunate task of interrupting you? I promise I will give you a chance to finish your point. Frederick Muitiriri, I do have a debt that I owe this man, but I'll come back and repay it. Frederick Muitiriri, I'm told you're on standby with one of the candidates. Let's hear that immediate reaction minutes after that debate concluded.
Shukran sana Wahiga Mora kutoka Citizen TV. Nashukuru sana mie Frederick Muitiriri kutoka TV 47. Ninaye hapa mwaniaji wa kiti cha ugavana Polycarp Igathe, na pale ndani mwaniaji kulikuwa kipute ambacho kilikuwa kikubwa sana. Unahisi kwamba zile miezi 6 ambazo zimekuwa zikitajwa sana, huenda wa Nairobi wakawa wanakuona kwa njia tofauti kutokana na wakati ambao ulihudumu kama naibu gavana?
Wacha niseme hivi. Umeona wapinzani wetu, kazi yao kubwa ni kuamini kwamba wewe unatakikana ufanye kazi, wewe unatakikana ukae kwa ofisi upate mshahara bila kupata kazi. Hiyo ndio swala kubwa sana ambalo wamegusia leo. Lakini sisi ni waadilifu, sisi ni waaminifu, sisi tunaajibika, sisi ni wachapakazi, na ni heshima kwa katiba na kwa wananchi wa taifa la Kenya. Wewe ukiona hauwezi fanya kazi, uachane na mshahara wa kiserikali. Lakini hilo ndio jambo ambalo wanaona ni kubwa sana. Jambo la kudanganyana makaratasi, jambo la ukosefu wa masomo, jambo ya wizi. Hao maswala hawaoni kama ni makubwa kama hilo swala la lingine. Lakini ndivyo hivyo, ni wenzetu, tutaendelea na tutawashinda.
Asante. Lakini kabla haujondoka nikuulize kwamba wakazi takriban ama wapiga kura takriban milioni 2.4 wamekuwa wakitazama mjadala wa jioni ya leo. Unadhani kwamba umeweza kujieleza kama kiongozi ambaye ataweza kupigana na ufisadi vilivyo, kwa sababu lilikuwa ni jambo ambalo limeleta tumbo joto hapo ndani?
Natumai nimewaeleza na pia endelea kuwaeleza katika kampeni zetu. Inajulikana vizuri sana hapa Nairobi mambo ambayo yanaendelea ya ufisadi. Ni mambo ambayo yameandikiwa maripoti mengi, kuna nakala mingi ambazo zimeandikwa na institutions mingi sana, na hiyo kazi inajulikana. Kwa hivyo hakuna debate about kupigana na ufisadi.
Asante. Tunakutakia kila laheri. Wa Kenya wana Nairobi wataamua ifikapo tarehe 9. Tuelekee sasa upande ule mwingine. Leila Mohamed pamoja na Francis Gashuri
ambao kwa sasa wako na seneta wa Nairobi Johnson Sakaja. Twende kule.
Thank you very much, Beatrice and Frederick. It's been 180 minutes, 90 minutes of the second debate. Quite a heated one, Francis. Quite an encounter, a banter that many Nairobians this evening were hoping for. Senator, good evening. For a moment,
I'm to focus on that. Apart from the sideshow proposals that we have for the city, Nairobi is for all of us. Politics is not an enmity. I believe in siasa safi. Politics is not an enmity. After the election, we'll have one county that we must remain in. And let us also not be divided in terms of parties. Let's not be divided in terms of tribe. Let's remember that we're one tribe called Nairobi.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And Sakaja, feels like a rematch should be coming up because that was a real debate. Is there something that you felt that probably you needed to respond to, particularly that touches on people of Nairobi, in a minute?
At some point last year, I went to donate desks in Dagoretti, in a school called Gatina Primary. And when I gave them desks, normally you ask the children, what would you like to get from me? And they say, oh, Super Senator. And I thought they'd ask for sweets or for a bowl or for a school bus, even when they're ambitious. And they said they wanted food. We have, as a parent, that broke my heart. We have too many children who are out of school because of food, because of the COVID era and the poverty in Nairobi. As I said, urban poverty is the worst. And so I wanted to talk about the school feeding program that we're going to institute in Nairobi for all our children. That at least you'll be able to lower the cost of living for those parents. You save them close to 3,000 shillings a month, and attendance goes up. Many schools at 12:30 they tell the kids to go look for a meal, they don't come back. They're missing a third of the education. If you want to finish a country, you finish the children. So I really want to talk about school feeding. I want to talk about how to clean up Nairobi. I want to talk about the recycling plant and waste to energy in Dandora, and just moving that away. We have an entire wing at Kenyatta and Bagathi for respiratory illnesses for the people of Dandora. I want to talk about CHVs, our community health volunteers who are doing an amazing job across the county of Nairobi, who need to be incorporated, and from the day we get into office, they'll be part of our health system.
Thank you very much, Sakaja. The person to ask for a rematch is Clifford Machoka.
I think actually there's a rematch on the 9th of August. And that will be now a technical knockout at 9 a.m.
The voters will decide. The 22.1 million or 22.1 million in the country and the 2.4 million in Nairobi County. Thank you.
We wish you the very best of luck.
Sana.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Leila, VAR imetembea kidogo, so we take it back to Wahiga. Wahiga, take it away.
Wahiga, talk to us about the facts and the figures. Has this debate build up to its expectations of 2.4 million registered voters in this great county of Nairobi?
Not forgetting that at least 24% of them are undecided. And I don't know whether this debate helped a few of them to make their minds up. Professor Odote, did you get that sense? In the second part of the debate, because you said you saw two debates.
In the second part of the debate, but unfortunately, I don't think that it will help a lot because they spent too much time on the other things. So let me finish my conversation in terms of...
and I'll ask you to be brief in the interest of time.
Yes, very brief in terms of what I liked also about Polycarp. I liked his conversation about involving citizens. I think that was a good conversation. I also like his debate about the unique status of Nairobi in terms of the relationship between national and county government. The things I did not like, I didn't like the fact that Johnson, my good friend, did not apologize for coming late. Shockingly, despite his conversation about Siasa Safi, I didn't like his arrogance. And lastly, I did not like the conversations from Igade of over-focusing on Johnson and not himself. So those are the things I didn't like about the debate.
What you call arrogance, others call confidence, but depends on which side of the table you're seated. Let's hear from you, Wanjiru.
Bruising, exciting to listen to. I'm not sure the 26% will be able to decipher, but we definitely got a lot. Igade, I got a sense that he had prepared and articulated his implementation strategies pretty well. I liked his revenue strategy, breaking down the streams, sealing the loopholes. I found that to be very pragmatic and a low-hanging fruit. Whether he links it into the cloud, I got a sense that he imagines digitizing is going to cure the governance culture gap. That's not necessarily accurate. I liked the eggs, the neighborhoods, of course. Yeah, I liked the decentralization. Of course, his take on NMS, for me, is, in fact, the word I would use, it's odious. Because
this is Igade.
Yes, Igade's take on NMS is totally misplaced. And I think Sakaja brought that out very well, because the situation on the ground is that NMS has really, it hasn't been accountable. Contrary to what Igade is espousing in public participation, it hasn't had public participation. It hasn't had accountability. There's been a lot of coercion of citizens. On Sakaja's side, I think he got the NMS very accurately. I think I also like the argument around the 5 boroughs. I like the idea. I didn't hear much about how it would be implemented vis-a-vis the services and the particular sectors, because you need a policy framework for that. So I found his policy grounding to be weak. I thought he had ideas, but I didn't get a sense of policy. I got a real sense of what's happening on the ground. With Igade, I got a sense of the policy, of the implementation, but no sense on the ground. So I found they have different strengths. With Sakaja also, I didn't hear the governance coming out as a major problem.
Come out strongly.
Yeah.
Okay. Philip Kisia, if things had gone your way, you may have been one of the individuals on that panel today. But life has a way sometimes of taking a different tangent. So how do you then rate the two men that stood before Kenyans and Nairobians this evening?
I mean, I would be unfair. But, rating is something that we cannot avoid. One, like my two colleagues have said, I think Sakaja performed quite well. He seems to be understanding the issues affecting Nairobi. But on the flip side, he doesn't seem to have a clear implementation strategy. How do you deliver what you're talking about. On the other side, Polycarp could have been a bit weak on policy and on strategy, developing strategy. But he seemed to be very clear on how it can be implemented.
You sound like you want a candidate with both. You want to merge the two.
Yeah, you must have both. Must have both.
Would that
Now,
be the perfect
you
governor
must
for
have
Nairobi?
both. But what was disappointing is the fact, like what Prof has said, is the fact that somebody who is expecting to provide leadership to a county like Nairobi comes in late, he doesn't apologize. In fact, he appears to be quite arrogant. And I'm telling you this because Sakaja is my friend. I'll tell him even tomorrow if he's not listening to me. On the other side, just as Prof said, as I've said, they spent almost 60% of their time on personality issues. And very little time was spent on the real issues. At the tail end, they started talking about water, they started talking about housing, they started talking about public transport, and so on and so forth. They were just mentioning. They did, mentioning something and telling us how you intend to go about implementation is quite different. So now, leadership. And I'm one of those people who don't believe that there's somebody called a leader. But I believe there's somebody, a human being, at a point in time who exercises leadership. Now, if you look at those two gentlemen, I leave it to Nairobi to decide. Who has integrity? No, they're not mine.
I'm going to make a very strong statement. Go ahead.
Who is humble, humility? Because as somebody exercising leadership, you must show some humility. Who has integrity or integrity questions? Who is confident? Who is empathic? Who is charismatic? Who can we hold accountable? From the two, I can tell you, if there's a weakness I've seen in the two gentlemen, they know it all. So they may end up being very poor team players. So if they don't have a party that can whip them and remind them that they are there to serve people, we are again getting into another disaster.
Okay.
We had poor leadership, but now we can have arrogant leadership.
And that's your concern this evening.
Yes.
Professor Omenya, I know you have notes and incisive analysis of the debate, but let me first ask a basic question. Did anyone emerge a winner tonight from that debate? You were very clear earlier with your marking scheme for the earlier debate, so I'm going to pose the same question to you. What's your marking scheme showing you for this debate?
Yes,
Who won?
I'm not afraid to give marks because that's one of my key roles. I think despite coming late, Sakaja won by 65%.
You didn't dock him for the lateness.
And Igathe, in fact, I think it'll be a draw if you bring in the lateness. Igathe was at 63%, so they're very close. But I can justify why I actually believe that Sakaja did win this debate. And I think when it comes to governance, I was a bit surprised that Igathe did not speak to the law relating to governance of the city, which is basically Urban Areas and Cities Act. And Sakaja elaborated that very well, with the 5 boroughs and so on. And those can actually be aligned, with the wards and so on. I thought that was a very, very good idea. When it came to the issue of revenue, I think both of them had pretty interesting ideas that are workable. However, my big problem with both of them, so they scored poorly there, was that again, counties and citizens don't just exist to pay taxes. We want counties to be engines of economic growth. So none of them actually articulated how Nairobi can grow its economy. In fact, Sakaja was talking about borrowing on the other side and financing debt and stuff. And Igathe was talking about land rates and so on. And I was fearing for Nairobi that both of those fellows are going to milk you dry when they get into office. And then just moving quite quickly on to another issue that they engaged with, which is the final one. When it came to the idea of housing, I think I liked Sakaja's idea. Because, of course, Igathe knows that his Jubilee government has failed to deliver any houses. So trying to do the same thing is stupid. He should know that, and that's partly why, for me, he lost the debate totally. Sakaja says, look here, these people, poor people living in informal settlements, we can improve their lives without necessarily building houses. We can put infrastructure there. We can put in water. We can put in these basic services and so on. So in a way, we're close, but I think Sakaja had an edge. And I think Sakaja was speaking more to governance and politics, while Igathe was, an elected NMS, if I can call it
That's how the professor sees it. Karen, coming to you, earlier on you said Nairobi doesn't need a politician, doesn't need a businessman or a corporate titan, it needs a leader. Did you see a leader on that stage tonight?
Yeah, both gentlemen showcased qualities of leadership. And let me just point out a few things that I liked and what I did not like in how everything went. Like a number of us have said, I expected that Sakaja would actually apologize for showing up late. But I'm glad he still showed up anyway. But just that apology would send a statement to people that, you know what, I actually respect your time. But that did not come out, so that wasn't good. However, his idea about what he has in terms of housing, in terms of water, resolving the issue about revenue generation policy implementation, I think that was good because it was quite practical. Igathe, on the other hand, I liked what he said, that he would like to continue with the work that has already happened or work that has already started. Because then a lot of times when there's regime change, you then see new MPs, new governors coming up and starting fresh projects and leaving stalling projects, and that is problematic. Something else that I liked with what Igathe said was about performance contracting, making sure that you're getting paid and yes, you're actually performing, because then we can see that is already working very well in public service. The other bit, at the beginning, he actually sort of tried to be relatable to the Nairobians, to the residents of Nairobi, by saying, mimi ningependa kuhudumia watu wa Nairobi, mimi I am a product of healthcare, public schooling, and being relatable. I think he did a good job in terms of that. A potential danger, though, although I think maybe it could have been just him getting back at Sakaja by saying wale watu ambao hawakwenda shule wanakosa nidhamu and stuff like that, because then we have a number of individuals, especially young people, who dropped out of school, who are not in training, not in education, and they are like over 40% of the population of the unemployed young people. So I think hapo kuna shida kidogo, but generally this was such a hot, heated debate. It was really good.
I like the way you've put it. Go ahead.
I think it's only unfortunate that we didn't have choices. We have either Sakaja or Igathe.
What do you mean you didn't have choices?
There are no choices.
Four other candidates duly cleared by the IBC.
Those guys,
some with manifestos.
The entire panel gave them 3 out of 10. Now, you see, if we had more choices, and this is why I regret why Timothy Wanyonyi was denied this opportunity. Because Timothy Wanyonyi has everything we are looking for. He's humble, he shows humility, he has experience in leadership, he is a good manager, he's a good team player, he has everything that you are looking for. It is extremely unfortunate that the powers that be never gave him an opportunity to serve. And I know I'm saying this at the cost of a very high cost.
I thought you aligned with Azimio, and I'm wondering.
No, I'm saying this at a very high cost. But I better say it than keep quiet. That we should have had many choices. Then Nairobians would have said, okay, maybe this one is arrogant, or maybe this one doesn't, but this one has a certificate, this one has a certificate, and this one's a big private sector. You need somebody with all those skills put together. And that should have been Timothy.
Wanjiru is vehemently agreeing.
Yes. It was a point. I think the 26%, I think the 26%, a large number of those are unhappy with the choices. Because they are saying, we deserved better. We've invested. We've seen Tim Wanyonyi grow his career. He's been MP now for 2 terms. He's done very well.
Been a councillor.
And there was an expectation.
But what guarantee do you have that if he was here today, you wouldn't be putting him through the same scrutiny that you've put through?
No, he would be put. He would be put, but it's the expectation that we would have a choice. Now we have a tailor-made. We've got a project, and we have, somebody else, and we have to choose between these. And like you said, it's not cut and dried. Hence the 26%.
Prof. Omenya?
Happens when you have good people who are qualified, who have a track record, who don't present themselves up to run for office.
He did present himself, but then there was the party rigged him out.
Prof. Omenya, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I agree 100%. I'm just adding to those sentiments that, again, overall, tonight we've been disappointed because Nairobi is the biggest economy outside of Kenya. And the governor of Nairobi, we expect to be a person capable of running this country. And there are expectations we have of that individual in terms of the way they carry themselves, in terms of duty of care, in terms of the depth with which they think through things that affect Wananchi and so on. And what we're seeing here are actually juveniles who still need a lot of growth to be at that particular level where you can say yes.
Professor, I don't think it's fair to call adults.
I've withdrawn and apologize to the two juveniles. Can I put it differently?
Professor, please.
Let me put it differently.
Don't make it worse.
No, I actually want to tell you something that was written in my class WhatsApp group as the debate was going on. So they say the two boys can govern the city.
They use the word boys.
Yeah, but then they go into a better place. Both still remain fine gentlemen, but the city needs more. And that last part that I want to focus on. If we forget the analogies, I think the critical thing, and you hear the percentage 65, 63, if we got a half of what we had in Igade and a half of what we had in Polycarp, we would be able to get the governor we need. And that is possible. Unfortunately, we are going to get half full as opposed to the complete governor that we need. And I think that's the challenge that we're having in terms of Nairobi. As I said when we were starting this conversation, and remember when I was comparing with my county, Homa Bay, I was making the point that we need governors, good governors across the country, but we need an exceptional governor in Nairobi. Because Nairobi is not just one of the 47 counties. It is the city, the capital city, international city. Unfortunately, watching today, and if you are looking for that international status, you are looking for that super status, you still don't get it from the two gentlemen. And
Professor,
I think that's the challenge.
Let me cross over because I now have 7 minutes or less and immediately hear from you. Karen, I'll start with you. What do the 6 who showed up for this debate now do moving forward? In one word, what more can they do to build up from what's happened here tonight?
I think do some research and get more information and factual information about what needs to be done in the city, for the residents of the city, and actually go out and do that. So just a little more research. The two final candidates definitely did their homework, especially Sakaja has the information and all that stuff. But just the bit to go out there, do a little more research about what needs to be done, align themselves, and make sure they get to do that when they get elected.
And Prof, just as briefly, some would say, look at previous debates. Some didn't even show up and they won the elections.
Yes.
Your panel is talking as if winning debates is winning elections.
No, not at all. In fact, I think really to be fair to the two gentlemen, we are very happy that you've got people that you can actually listen to.
Yeah.
So that was positive. And they did actually engage with the issues. In fact, for me, it's an issue of I'm happy that I had high expectations of them. And those expectations are not totally destroyed.
Okay.
There are some candidates that I would not even have bothered having an expectation about. But my only message to them is this.
And your final message, please.
And that's my final message. That this is an extremely serious job, governing Nairobians. Please think through your ideas and your policies, especially the critical ones that will take this county forward.
Okay, I'll stop you there. I have 5 minutes. Final comment from you. What more can the candidates do?
Okay, now for the ones who are calling fringe candidates.
28 days to go.
I would suggest that they just pack off and go home. And,
Philip Kisia, surely.
No, I'm telling you. And it came from Wanjiru. Let them pack off, go home.
You're telling Kenneth Nyamwamu, you're telling Herman Rewal, you're telling Mwadime.
Then start from somewhere. You can start from Member of Parliament or MCA, then grow, get experience. Okay? For the two gentlemen, they need to appreciate that leadership is about inspiring people. Leadership is about being able to get people in one basket to move in one direction willingly, competently, enthusiastically.
Okay, I'll take that as your final comment. And that's a good place to leave it. Wanjiru?
I think for me it's one, looking at these two candidates, citizens either way will need to hold them to account. These leaders need humility, to listen, to round off. For Igade, he needs to understand the human rights-based approach. For Sakaja, we need to get that real servant leadership that he's listening, strengthen on that accountability. But the lesson is to us as citizens. Don't be discouraged by the choices. Go and vote for whoever, but let us be vigilant and hold them to account and force them to raise the level of their performance.
And all this is possible in 28 or so days.
Well, they need to be reflecting. You see, they're out on the campaign trail. They need to practice humility. They need to learn human rights-based approach.
Okay.
Citizens need to vote and choose. and hold leaders to account, because we've seen what we are working with. We need to keep growing and forcing them to grow and come closer to our expectation.
And keep them accountable. Professor Dote.
I think some very few things. Number one, for Harman, I think this was a great opportunity that he used well. I think he needs to continue doing what he did. The future is bright for him. For these other two candidates, I think I just have three things for them. Number one, they need to speak to us much more in the remaining 28 days. And as they do, they need to focus on the 24% undecided. I think today, they didn't do enough on that 24%. I think they focused much on their base, but they need to focus on the 24%. And I think the last thing, which I struggled with, the 100 days. As we said at the start, what is critical is implementation. They need to sharpen what they will do quickly to be able to turn the ship around. That, for me, would be critical.
Okay, and we certainly hope that they did not change.
I have my parting shot. Just one. Let Nairobi residents be involved, get to know your candidates, understand what the issues are, and go and vote. It is important, and your vote does count.
Your vote does count, and that's a good place to leave it. We are going to have to wrap it here. Let me thank my panelists. This has been phenomenal. I'm glad to have had each of you here. Karen Wakoli, who's the founder and executive director, Emerging Leaders Foundation. Professor Alfred Omenya, an urban development expert. We've had Philip Kisia, former Nairobi town clerk. Wanjiro Gikonya, who's the national coordinator for the Institute for Social Accountability, and of course Professor Collins Odote, an associate dean, Faculty of Law at the University of Nairobi. Let me just quickly read one interesting message I've received from Justina Wamai, the running mate to Professor Wajakoya of the Roots Party. She says she's looking forward to attending the debate next week, Tuesday, but she says please give us more time to articulate our issues. I'm sure the organizers of this debate have heard, but of course, you cannot have too much time, otherwise the debate would never end. But Justina, I have read your message, and we look forward to having you here at the Catholic University next week, Catholic University of Eastern Africa, next week, Tuesday, for that debate that will kick off pretty much around the same one as the others that did here today. Let me also thank some of the organizers who've made this event a possibility, and this debate a possibility today, having concluded the first ever Nairobi Governors Debate, brought to you by the Presidential Debate Secretariat, the Media Council of Kenya, of course, and also the Kenya Editors Guild. And also on behalf of the wider media fraternity that has made this a possibility, it's also in partnership with Amnesty International, the Catholic University, Diamond Trust Bank, Homeboys, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Kenya Human Rights Commission, Linton's Academy, Kenya Daima, NHIF, Okoa Uchumi, the Institute of Social Accountability, UNDP, Usawa Agenda, and Oxfam as well. We look forward to having you tune in across all TV and radio stations on the 19th of this month, next week, Tuesday, for the next debate, where the deputy president candidates from each who have been cleared by the IEBC have been invited to attend those debates. And the other week, which is the Tuesday, should be the 26th for the presidential debates as well. And they'll be held here to give you a chance as a voter to make up your mind to decide who you will vote for on the 9th of August, 2022. On behalf of the whole team, a big team, over 100 journalists, producers, editors, and so forth who've made this production possible, thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing you this debate from 4 p.m. when we kicked off until now. My name is Wahiga Mwaura from Citizen TV. I wish you a good night.
Kiregiriro kia wendo
nimbo dogi kuhikia thaici no ndimoroge ndagite gukuona tene
Wagi gwatata gwe katia.
Marakara maguthigano.
Agikihe wira ngiruta. Ureciria ri nyonete maigana.
Maheni na kwaga wigiririku.
Nitugutuika ici. Uigura account na bank negi. Tie ndatho komeirwo drama bro.
Ndukahĩtũkwo nĩ icanjama ici cia Central Cinema.
Ndagũmenya ndũgũtware thoko. Twaragia kĩrĩa.
Ngai nĩ athuire kĩrimũ. Rĩu ndũgwĩta kĩrimũ.
Nĩ ndũ icio kwanja ũrĩa hakirie thĩ.
Hii ni swag.
O mũthenya wa mwambĩrĩrio nginya wa kana, thaa 5 cia ũtukũ ũcanjamũke.
Oya thimũ yakwa. Rĩu Brati nĩkwambia kũgĩa na guoya nĩ ũndũ wa mamu wao.
Angĩkorwo ciana icio nĩ nene nĩ wega gwĩtĩkĩra inyuĩ mũratigana, you come into term co-parenting.
Oi Ngai, kũrathiĩ atĩa nja? Ĩyo ndaigua tarĩ mĩciĩ.
With the power of Dettol bar soap, it cleans and protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Dettol antibacterial soap 60 grams is now 50 shillings.
Tuikarage tugicũthagĩrĩria ũndũ ũngĩkĩka tukauhonokia. Itagwo physical and psychological safety of youth and children. Nĩ wega ithuĩ ta aciari twĩkĩre thĩinĩ wa mũbango ya ciana citũ ona arĩa me university, mwana hĩndĩ ciothe as long as nyina wake e muoyo kana ithe wake e muoyo.
Go back to school the authentic Kenyan way with the Naivas Back to School. Naivas saves you money.
Marua ma Paulo ma keri kuri Timotheo mũrango wa 4 mũhari wa 7 nĩ ndũĩte mbara ĩrĩa njega nakĩo kĩhĩtahĩtano gĩakwa rĩ nĩ nginyĩte gĩturi gĩakĩo naguo rutani ũrĩa wa wĩtĩkio rĩ nĩ ndũire ndĩũmenyereire